I'm Mark Matsumoto, and today we're gonna confuse your taste buds, but in a good way, with springy udon noodles in a chilled sesame broth, topped with spicy ground beef and chili oil. The contrast of textures and tastes make this perfect for summer, so stick around. Sesame noodles are known as Tantan men in Japan, and I've done hot versions of this Chinese-inspired spicy noodle dish in the past. It's usually made with ramen noodles, but it's also done with thick, chewy udon noodles. And since this version is chilled, it's called hiyashi tantan udon. With a fiery topping and cool nutty broth below, these chilled sesame noodles are an addictive juxtaposition of hot and cold, and rich and refreshing, and it's one of those meals that jumpstarts your appetite on those sweltering days when you don't feel like eating much. Sounds good, right? Let's take a look at our ingredients. For the cold sesame broth, I'm using 3 tablespoons of nerigoma or Japanese sesame paste, a half cup of soy milk, a half cup of chicken stock, and a half teaspoon of salt. For the spicy meat topping, I've got 1 tablespoon of miso, 1 tablespoon of doubanjiang, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, 1 large clove of garlic, a smaller knob of ginger, a half teaspoon of ground Sichuan pepper, and 150 grams of ground beef. To serve this, you need 2 servings of udon noodles. I'm using frozen udon today, but dried or fresh noodles will work as well. You also want to use some mayo or chili oil, 2 teaspoons of toasted sesame seeds, and a scallion. To make the broth, I'm gonna pour the sesame paste into a bowl, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of the chicken stock. Mix this together until it's fully incorporated and you have a nice smooth paste. Keep adding a little bit of liquid at a time and mixing it in. You'll notice that the liquid causes the sesame paste to get thicker at first, which is why it's super important to add the liquid a little bit at a time. Otherwise, the mixture is gonna seize up and form stubborn clumps that are difficult to dissolve. Eventually, the mixture will loosen up enough to be pourable, and that's when you can add the rest of the chicken stock. Once this mixture is nice and smooth, add the soy milk and the salt. Then you want to stir this together until the salt is fully dissolved. Now I'm gonna cover this up and pop it into the fridge to chill. For the scallions, I'm gonna chop off the white part and save it to use for something else. Then I'm gonna trim the greens down to a manageable size, and then I'm gonna chop them up. These not only provide a fresh onion flavor to our noodles, they also add a nice crisp texture which provides another tantalizing contrast to our spicy udon. Next, I'm gonna grate the ginger. You'll want to get the ginger pulp without getting too much of those tough fibers, and this ceramic grater does a great job at that. Then I'm gonna grate in the garlic as well. I've given the gram measurements for these in the video description, but precision isn't super important here, and you can adjust the amounts to suit your tastes. Okay, our prep is done, so let's start cooking. The first thing you'll want to do is put a pot of water on to boil. Then I'm gonna heat a frying pan over medium-high heat and add the toasted sesame oil, along with the grated ginger and garlic. We're gonna fry these for about a minute or until they're super fragrant. The pan should be hot enough that the aromatics are sizzling, but you don't want the heat up so high that it starts to smoke or it's gonna make the topping bitter. Next, I'm gonna add the Sichuan pepper and sugar and fry these for just a few seconds. This releases the citrusy flavor of the pepper while caramelizing the sugar. Then I'm gonna add the ground beef and break up the clumps using the side of a spatula. I like the meaty flavor of beef for this, but ground pork or chicken will work just as well. Just keep chopping and tossing the beef until you've got fine crumbles and there's no red parts remaining. Then I'm gonna add the miso, doubanjiang, and oyster sauce. and stir fry this until the seasonings are evenly distributed. Okay, let's give these a few more tosses, and our spicy topping is done. It looks like our pot of water for the udon is at a full boil, so let's add the noodles. Frozen udon has been pre-cooked, so we just need to defrost and heat these up. If you want to try making your own udon noodles from scratch, I have a detailed homemade udon tutorial, and I'll include a link to that in the video description down below. Okay, our udon has defrosted and the water is returned to a boil, so let's drain the noodles. Then I'm gonna chill them under cold running water. These thick noodles are gonna be super hot, so take your time to cool them down and be careful. Once the noodles are down to room temperature, dump them into a bowl of cold water and add in some ice to thoroughly chill them. This gives the udon a marvelously springy texture that adds another layer of complexity to this dish. These are feeling nice and cold, so let's drain the noodles. And I'm gonna pick out all of the remaining ice. To plate this up, I'm gonna dump the noodles into a serving bowl. Then let's get the chilled sesame broth out of the fridge and pour half of this cold and creamy broth over the noodles. Next, I'm gonna grab the spicy ground beef and mound half of it up in the center of the udon. By the way, I only boiled 1 serving of noodles today, but the recipe makes enough broth and topping for 2 servings. Let's top this off with a generous sprinkle of toasted sesame seeds for another layer of texture and flavor. And then I'm gonna add half of the scallions off to one side of the meat. And this is where we add my secret sauce. It's a spicy chili oil from Ishigaki Island in Okinawa that's loaded with an addictive blend of spices and seasonings that give it plenty of heat, along with boatloads of umami. It's honestly one of my favorite condiments, and you can pick it up on my shop on Kokoro Care packages. I'll include a link in the description, and be sure to use coupon code MARKSFavorites to get 10% off your first order. Alright, our hiyashi tantan udon is done, so let's try it out. Oh, this smells so good. Itadakimasu. Alright, I'm gonna mix this up, get some of that beef all mixed up with that sesame sauce and get some of those crispy onions in there. All right, let's go in for a bite. The noodles are super slick, so they just slide right into your mouth, but they're coated with that rich sesame sauce. And the beef just adds so much umami to this. You've got the crisp scallions in there that add a touch of freshness, and it all just kind of comes together into this creamy, refreshing, spicy sauce. One of the best things about this is you can control how spicy it is by that chili oil you add at the end. So you can add a ton like me, or none at all. You know those sweltering summer days when you just don't feel like cooking or eating anything? One whiff of this, and I promise you, you'll get your appetite back. Oh, that's so good. Well, I'm feeling pretty energized and I'm ready to hit the gym. But check out this playlist for more chilled noodle dishes that are perfect for summer. And I'll catch you in the next one.